The day they cut the resort ribbon, cameras flashing and champagne spraying, I stood there grinning like an idiot. Not because I was proud of the HOA's work on my lake, but because in exactly 7 months, I was going to sell the entire property right out from under them for hundreds of millions. When I first laid eyes on Maplewood Lake, it looked like a painting you might find in a dentist's office. Soft pastels, perfect ripples, and a quiet so deep you could almost inhale it. The water stretched lazily, framed by dense woods and a few battered docks, half submerged in mud like sleeping dogs. The air smelled of wet earth, pine needles, and something older, slower than the rest of the world. At that moment, I knew I would spend the rest of my life here if I could. It had taken 30 years of careful saving, brown bag lunches, skipped vacations, and working weekends nobody else wanted. But finally, I was ready. The property was small by most standards, barely an acre with a narrow strip of waterfront. An old fishing shack leaned against the trees, fragile, like a single wrong move could topple it. A rickety dock listed sideways whenever the wind picked up. But it was mine. No mortgage, no landlords, no angry upstairs neighbors stomping at 2 a.m. Just me, my land, and the lake. The man who sold it to me was Ed Whitaker, sun-leathered and weathered, who had fished these waters with his father for 70 years. On closing day, Ed shook my hand, warned me about snapping turtles near South Cove, and said the only rule of the lake was simple: respect it, and it would respect you back. No one mentioned an HOA, not a whisper, not a clause, just land, plain and pure. Or so I thought. The first months were exactly as I'd dreamed. Early mornings paddling a battered aluminum canoe, mist curling off the surface like ghostly fingers. Afternoons clearing trails and chopping firewood. Evenings watching stars so thick and close it felt like you could fall upward. Neighbors were few and far between, mostly older families like Ed, waving from porches but keeping to themselves. Perfect. Then the newcomers arrived. At first it was subtle. Shiny SUVs kicked up dust along the gravel road. Contractors hammered and sawed day and night. Where trees once stood, giant homes sprouted, pushing decks and chimneys as close to the water as possible without toppling in. The new families wore pressed polos and yoga pants, spoke loudly about stock options and property values, and acted as if they had discovered the lake themselves. Rumors began circulating about an improvement initiative led by the wealthiest newcomer, Bradley Keene, a commercial real estate magnate with a tan so permanent it looked sprayed on. Papers circulated, slick with corporate logos, full of friendly language about protecting our shared treasure and preserving sunny shores for the future. I read the fine print twice, then 3 times. They were proposing a homeowners association, the Sunny Shores HOA, with all the usual rules. Mandatory dues, voting weighted by property size, strict regulations on fence height, mailbox color, and, most notably, declaring the lake common property under HOA management. I laughed at first. My deed, and those of the old families, made no mention of an HOA, let alone granting control of the lake. Declaring a natural lake common property with a few signatures felt like a bad TV movie plot. I refused to sign. The other old-timers did too, or at least those still paying attention. But it didn't matter. Bradley had numbers, lawyers, and audacity. Thanks to a shady clause deep in the township charter, if a supermajority of lakefront owners approved an association, it applied retroactively. 2 weeks later, my first Welcome to Sunny Shores packet arrived. Glossy, cheerful, stuffed with bylaws and fee schedules. My annual dues, $3,200. Participation expected and appreciated. I threw it straight into the wood stove. 2 days later, workmen appeared on my shoreline unannounced, unloading lumber, power tools, and concrete mix. I demanded to know what they were doing. One shrugged. Installing a community pier and picnic area for the residents' enjoyment on my land. Permission? None from me. Township bounced me to the county. The county bounced me back to the HOA. A garish wooden sign appeared by my dock. Sunny Shores Lakefront Park. Residents and guests only. A nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Fines followed. $500 for failure to maintain shoreline vegetation, even though I had peacefully lived there for months. Native wildflowers from Ed's grandfather's day didn't matter. Calls to the HOA yielded clipped, unhelpful responses. My neighbors? Polite nods, then back to planning lakeside yoga retreats and cocktail parties. It wasn't about the land for them. It was status, branding, Instagram-ready vacation homes. I tried to ignore it, focus on my peace, but every week brought another fine, another smug email threatening legal action. Then came the town hall. Bradley Keene announced a small community lodge on the East Bank, right next to my dock and crumbling shack. I sat quietly as the crowd applauded, oohed over renderings with timber beams, stone fire pits, and sprawling lawns consuming the East Bank. Nobody asked about the lake, the roads, the traffic, or the legality of claiming the shoreline. I realized protests or angry emails wouldn't win this battle. I went home, dusted off my filing cabinet, and began documenting everything. Notices, photos of unauthorized construction, fines, emails, trash. I studied property law, easements, covenants, and water rights. I planted my feet in the mud and waited. Powerful people overreach when greedy, and when they do, the right paper at the right time can bring the whole empire down. Weeks later, my lawyer James Hawthorne discovered an 1897 land covenant in the original township filings. It granted exclusive rights to the eastern lakefront, from Whitaker's Bend to Cedar Hollow, including lake access and mineral rights. My deed, my lake. Commercial operators without my permission? Illegal. Every dock, kayak rental, and pontoon cruise depended on my consent, and they didn't have it. James explained, "Let them finish. Once the resort is built and running, sunk costs will make it priceless. That's when we strike, for ownership, control, real money." I waited. The resort grew, a sprawling monstrosity of faux rustic beams, imported stone, and manicured lawns. Gas lamps, a rebuilt marina, a dredged beach with cabanas. Every nail hammered, every tree felled, every glossy poster printed, tightened the trap. Bradley strutted around like a king, hosting investors and county officials, blind to what was coming. Grand opening arrived. White and gold banners, brass bands, food trucks, news crews. Bradley gushed about community and prosperity. I clapped too. But beneath their feet, beneath the marina boards and imported pavers, lay a century-old paper with my name on it. The legal filings were ready. Quiet title action, injunctions against commercial use without consent, challenges to every dock and event license. The filings hit the county like a flash flood. Headlines screamed, "Legal challenge threatens Sunny Shores development." The investors realized what the HOA refused to. I controlled the lake. Suddenly, offers poured in. Private equity, hotel chains, national resorts, each understanding that without my consent, the HOA resort was worthless. I played it cool, letting the tension and bids climb. 7 figures became 8. 8 threatened 9. Meanwhile, the HOA continued their operations obliviously. Weddings, concerts, boat rentals. Every dollar they made, every photo posted, every event held was proof of their illegal activity. I documented it all, silently. When the final offer hit a number so obscene I had to double-check, I nodded at James. Sell it. The national resort conglomerate bought it all. Maplewood Lake, not just the HOA resort. The true value? The water, the control, the rights I held since 1897. The wire transfer hit. hundreds of millions. Enough to buy a private island, enough to never work again. Within 24 hours, corporate attorneys swooped in. Cease and desist letters to every HOA address. Commercial operations revoked. Events canceled. The resort crumbled overnight. Bradley Keene lost his mind. The board disbanded, and Sunny Shore's bright future collapsed. And the lake healed. Slowly, stubbornly. Geese returned, otters darted through reeds, fish shimmered beneath the surface. Trees grew, wildflowers bloomed, waters cleared. Early mornings I'd push my canoe into the center of the lake, drift, and watch the ruins crumble into the woods. I smiled. I hadn't just won, I had outlasted them. Fishing rod in one hand, coffee in the other, I watched the sun gild the lake in gold. Respect, patience, knowing when to fight and when to wait. The breeze carried pine, earth, and clean air. Sunny shores crumbled in the distance, a warning whispered on the wind. Some battles are won with force, some with fire. The sweetest ones? You win by standing still and letting the world collapse around you. If you want, I can also make a condensed version for a video narration that's under 6 to 7 minutes while keeping all the tension and storytelling intact. It would be perfect for a YouTube video script.